I, 26 female, have two sisters. Molly, 29, is biologically related to me, while Abby, 27, is my stepsister. I have no problem with either of my sisters and love them dearly, but I'm a lot closer to Molly than I am to Abby, since Abby and I were almost teenagers when we met. For context, a few years ago my mother passed away, and I was handed some large rolls of fabric, and since Molly's wedding was coming up, I offered to make a dress for my sister free of charge using the fabrics. Just recently, Abby got engaged and asked me to make her wedding dress as well. I agreed on the condition that she provided her own fabric. When Abby asked if I had any of my mother's fabric left, I said I did, but felt uncomfortable making a dress for my stepsister using my mother's material. She got upset at this and said that it felt unfair. After this encounter, I got a few calls from my stepmother and father begging me to let Abby use the fabric, since some wedding fabrics can be expensive, and they were strapped on cash. I told them that there were many cheaper fabric alternatives and offered to help them find a few, but they would always hang up. So I'm curious if I'm the idiot in all this. I feel like I'm justified as I'm still making Abby a free wedding dress and not taking in labor costs. Molly did pay me for her wedding dress despite my refusal, but I didn't want to make Abby do the same. Am I the idiot here? Not the idiot, it was your mother's fabrics and she didn't know your mom. What if you wanted to get married and want the fabrics for your dress? Say, sorry, but these have sentimental value to me and I want them for my future wedding dress and to hand them down to my potential daughters. Your dad and stepmom can buy her own fabrics, but they seem to be stingy. It's also okay to say the fabric has all been claimed. You have at least your wedding dress, if not a christening portrait dress for your mother's grandchildren. For you, it's about love and sentiment. For stepsister, it's about money. Come on. When they complain about the fabric being pricey, let them check prices for whole dresses. And no one is required to treat everyone equally in kindness. It sounds like they're upset because they wanted free stuff. It's not so much the stated reasons. You know how people slap a machine that's not working properly? That's the equivalent of their behavior towards OP. To continue this thread, OP, Abby is not related to your mother and is not entitled to the fabric. They shouldn't try to give you a dressing down for holding a firm and reasonable boundary. Their financial concerns about the fabric are their issue to sort out, and they need to stop needling you about it. OP, you are not the idiot. Right, even the free labor alone would be a huge gift. In fact, it's such a big gift that it's something I personally don't think I'd ever be able to accept. I'd be very grateful if a family member or close friend offered to give me a discount on a custom dress, but at cost would be too much. I'm going to go with no idiots here. On the one hand, these were your mother's fabrics. However, I can understand why the stepsister is upset. She may not grasp exactly why the fabrics are so important to you, especially if you don't talk about your mom much. To her, they could just seem like bolts of cloth, nothing special. Here's what I think you should do. Sit Abby down and talk to her about your reasonings. Maybe you all could come to an understanding if she's willing to listen. You could also offer to go fabric shopping or sourcing with her as a bonding opportunity. Cannot agree, and I say this as a crafter. A project that starts out on as bad a footing as this goes further downhill, not up. The stepsister dragged other family members into it. A good cue to whether someone is being an idiot is when they hang up the phone on an offer of free labor. The situation is past the point of fabric shopping together, and that type of offer is likely to get misconstrued. OP has been fair and isn't obliged to risk more mistreatment. My wife and I have been married for almost 5 years and we have a toddler son. We both work full-time and our son is in daycare during the day. Neither of us makes a huge amount of money, but we make enough every month to pay bills and put some away for savings. My mother-in-law lives, in my mind, an odd life. She's been separated from her husband, my wife's stepdad, for over a year. She moved out of their home and moved from family member to family member every few weeks or months. I don't believe there was any abuse or infidelity. Both mother-in-law and stepdad would be difficult people to live with, and I think she and stepdad just had enough of each other and she left. She doesn't work, doesn't drive, just kind of moves from one house to another. She's also only in her late 50s, so it's not like she's incapable of working or supporting herself. She just doesn't for whatever reason. I know she has a few health issues like anemia and pre-diabetes, but she's medicated for them and has changed her diet drastically over the last year. My wife talked with her mom this past weekend. She's currently living with one of her brothers a few hours from us. Mother-in-law was stressed out because her husband quit his job, and now she has no health care. and she's worried about their money running out. Now, I won't pretend to fully understand their financial situation, but from what I gather, mother-in-law is still using their joint account, and husband doesn't have a problem with it. Mother-in-law was venting to my wife about how they wouldn't have any money, and she doesn't know what to do. The whole conversation stressed my wife out too, and she came to talk to me about it afterward. She said the conversation made her realize that her mom will be completely dependent on other people for the rest of her life. She said it will probably fall on my mother-in-law's siblings and us to be financially responsible for her. My brother-in-law is a nice guy, but he's still delivering pizzas in his early 30s and doesn't strike me as a person to put a lot of money away. I told my wife that I don't think we're in a position to financially support another adult, especially one with potentially expensive medical issues. I told her our priorities need to be our house, our son, and our family. My wife got upset at this and said that I wouldn't be saying the same thing if my parents were in need. Then I told her, but it isn't my parents. My parents are still working into their mid to late 60s. They have retirement plans and the funds to make those plans happen. I told her that it shouldn't fall on us to support her mom when it wasn't us who made a choice for her to not work for the last decade plus. I told her I feel bad for her mom and her situation, but that it's entirely of her own making, and it shouldn't be our responsibility to bail her out. My wife thinks this makes me a hugely selfish idiot, but I think I'm just being realistic about it. Am I the idiot here? Not the idiot. Ask your wife what she's prepared to give up to fund her mum's lifestyle. Any money going to her mum should come out of your wife's paychecks after bills. I'm sure when she sees the real-life consequences of doing this, she'll be more open to helping her mum sort her finances without leaning on the rest of the family. Not the idiot. Your mother-in-law is not an elderly, destitute woman. She is young enough to work, but is choosing not to. I don't think you're an idiot for not wanting to commit to supporting this woman for what could conceivably be a very long time. Not the idiot. You and your wife chose to get married and start a family. That child needs to come first. You're both collectively making enough to make ends meet and put money away for savings. That means that you're walking a tightrope right now, and taking on the burden of a grown adult who refuses to get a job to support herself could jeopardize your financial situation. Your wife needs to get in the mindset of putting your toddler first, and your mother-in-law needs to get a job. You're not selfish, but your mother-in-law fits that bill easily. In her 50s and couch surfing, I'd suggest for everyone's sanity she might look at the totality of the situation and return to the humble abode she shared with her husband. Can you imagine having to look after your mother-in-law for the next 30 years? I'd nip that in the bud quickly. Just rip that band-aid off before it turns into a big ugly scab. My sister, 32, and I, 29 female, both have young sons. The boys are in the same school, same class. My son's best friend is having a birthday party and invited many from the class, though not all. My nephew was not invited, but my son was. My nephew wasn't invited because my sister had built up a bad reputation with the parents. She doesn't allow my nephew to eat fast food or junk foods ever, and she's shown up to parties with my nephew demanding alternatives be offered for him, and even brought him into a couple of McDonald's birthday parties and then complained that he couldn't eat anything there. She even made demands that they provide a birthday cake that's healthy. She has kicked up so many fusses that he had received no birthday invites in the last few months, and now, with more and more progress being made with global issue and things somewhat returning to normal, bigger birthday parties are happening. My son's best friend is the current one. It's at a food place, fast food, and my nephew wasn't invited as I mentioned. My sister found out and told me I should say my son can't go if my nephew is excluded. I told her that I'm not denying my son the invite because my nephew wasn't invited, that it's my son's best friend and he wants to go. She told me I'm picking friends over family and encouraging my son not to be inclusive, and that I'm being a crappy sister. She's angry and told me I will be an idiot if I let my son go. There's been tension since the last 2 weeks, and you could say this is a make or break for our relationship. Am I the idiot for saying what I said? Not the idiot. Your sister is absolutely wrong. Her son is not invited to parties because his mother keeps showing up and being an entitled witch. No one needs to deal with that at a child's birthday party, which is stressful enough without adding entitlement to the recipe. So it's unsurprising that many parents have opted to leave nephew out of the invitation because they don't want to deal with Mama Nutso. Not the idiot. She's trying to force you to deprive your son of a good time with his friend because of the consequences of her own actions. I feel bad for the nephew, but you're not the cause of his situation. Also, who in the world has ever heard of a healthy birthday cake? Can't imagine it would be very tasty. Definitely not the idiot. Did you tell your sister why her son was being excluded? That she has no one to blame but herself? She sounds insufferable. You shouldn't deny your son that opportunity to go to his best friend's party, as that would probably have a significant impact on your relationship with your son. She's allowed to raise her son however she wants, but demanding someone provide an alternative to their birthday meal, not for allergies or religion, solely for personal preference, is a bit too much. Instead, feed your kid before the party. Even parents of children with allergies do this. I host camping trips often, and some of my co-workers I'm friends with were interested. It's a big party in the woods on my aunt's substantial rural property. It's a group of people in their 20s and early 30s. Nobody's ever brought a kid or anyone under 21 for that matter. Another of my co-workers I don't know well asked if he could join, and I said, yeah, definitely, anyone can come, it'll be a great big party. I didn't think much of it, and then I made a group text for everyone I had invited camping to organise things. I asked the group if anyone needed to borrow camping gear. My co-worker then asked if my one-person tent would be suitable for 2 small kids. I texted back saying, sorry, this isn't really a kid trip, sorry I didn't explain well enough, but it's more of a big party in the woods. He texted me privately now, outside the group chat, and said that he and his wife are European and that they don't do the American thing of sheltering their kids from drinking or even foul language, so he was comfortable with the family coming. The kids can play pretty independently and they go to bed early. I felt weird and uncomfortable about this. I texted him back saying, sorry, really not comfortable with that. This is a 21 plus trip because I'm not okay having anyone underage at a party I'm hosting. He sent me a message saying, they're children, they're not teenagers trying to sneak a drink. I already told them they were invited, you said anyone was welcome. I said, yeah, I didn't mean to imply anything. I just think a family campground would be a better fit for kids. I can send you some recommendations of places I'm sure your kids would have more fun at than hanging out with us idiots drinking. He didn't text me back after that, but asked me in person at work the next day. He told me that it was inconsiderate of me to invite him and say anyone was welcome, and then uninvite him when he took me at my word, and that as a parent of young kids, it was difficult to get time to spend with other adults, and he and his wife were really looking forward to socializing, especially after the year spent at home. I asked if he could get a babysitter for one or even both nights. He and his wife would be welcome to join. Or he could join if his wife could stay with the kids. And he got cross with me at that point, saying that I was immature and didn't understand the realities of living life, not just selfishly, that you can't just pawn your kids off when it's inconvenient or rudely uninvite someone when it's inconvenient. I felt bad hearing that. I do feel a little like I got his hopes up and his kids' hopes up about camping because I wasn't clear enough about it at the start. Am I the idiot for uninviting my co-worker from camping? Not the idiot, that guy's a fool. You told him it was 21 plus multiple times. That's enough. And it matters zero what anyone in another country does. You're not in that other country, nor is anyone else that comes to the party. Not the idiot. If he wants to have a big adult party with his small children in attendance, he's free to organise and host it. Clearly an unfortunate bit of miscommunication around anyone can come, but that doesn't mean you're obligated to just let him do whatever he wants. I'd be uncomfortable with small children being at a big party in the woods too. What if someone got hurt or got lost? This is not negotiable and he's being unreasonable. I totally agree with what you're saying and that this father is an idiot, but it does sound like a huge cultural difference. I'll never forget I went to a Pink Floyd concert, paid good money for legit front row seats, and a couple had their kids there. They were dressed in some form of traditional cultural clothing and even said to some of the shocked faces of people around them, "Act like you always would." So while I think they're not in the right, apparently, some cultures really don't see the nuisance in it as we do. I disagree. I think that when someone says everyone is welcomed while at work, it means everyone from work is welcomed. Not everyone's family members and any random person you want to invite without telling the organizer are all welcomed. It's basic manners not to assume you can just bring random people into a private party without telling the host. My uncle has a knack for favoritism, namely aimed at me. He has 3 stepkids and then there's my 4 sisters and me. He and my aunt are divorced now though. I'm the only one without a dad. All of my sisters' dads are still in the picture and my cousin's dad is still very much around. When I was little, my uncle would always take me on a trip where my sisters and cousins would go with their dads. My mum and aunt like having their girls' weekend, so I'd always end up at my nan's. My mum has always been super grateful for him, and she and my aunt often refer to him as my dad. I do call him Dad occasionally. Recently, he had to fly back to Texas for something family-related, and he was away for 2 weeks. When he finally got back, the first thing he did was come and see me. We went for a drive where he gave me the gifts he bought. A little later, he gave everyone else theirs, and it was pretty obvious he'd not gotten them as much. When my cousin brought it up, he explained that I don't get as much as them throughout the year, and he wanted to get me more. He'd missed our weekend, so he just got extras to make up for it. They were pretty upset, and my sisters wound up cornering me later, telling me to share. Mum wound up saying that it wasn't her place to force me. My uncle bought them and they were mine. I didn't share, and my sisters got pretty upset and called me a spoiled brat. I wound up giving my stuff back to my uncle so he could keep it safe. Now they aren't talking to me, and I think I probably should just give them my stuff. But my uncle is saying that I shouldn't have to, and they do get a lot more than me regularly. So, am I the idiot? Not the idiot. This doesn't sound like favoritism to me. It sounds like he's sympathetic to the fact that your siblings and cousins have a dad, and you're the only one who doesn't, and he wants to make up for that. But I can't think of a better way to describe what I'm trying to say. The others are simply being greedy and selfish idiots. On a side note, I'm so glad your mum is sticking up for you. So many times in similar situations they don't do this because it's the easier route for them. Also, your uncle sounds like a fantastic guy. And do your sisters share their gifts from their dads with you? Tell them that and also to buzz off. Maybe less aggressive though, haha. Maybe you should try to ask your mom to set a boundary for them and to support you better. And don't give anything away. It was meant for you and only you. They're trying to guilt trip you because they feel threatened. But that's no excuse to behave like this at all. When a gift is given to you, it's okay to say no to sharing. Part of growing up is establishing boundaries. Your uncle didn't forget them, he got them all gifts too. Your uncle is trying to make up for a lack in your life, which is very kind of him. Your siblings and cousins should be ashamed of their sense of entitlement. That is not cool at all.